Hi guys. So today I had the real honor and pleasure of speaking with a person that I met on YouTube named Farhan Qureshi, I think. I should have asked how to pronounce that. Um, he is a convert from Islam to Hinduism, and we had the chance to talk, and it was so interesting and inspiring, and we really clicked and saw eye to eye on things. So I hope we'll be able to do something like this again in the future. So I'm going to share with you my side of the conversation, or him interviewing, no, me interviewing him, and then on his channel you can go and see him interviewing me, and I will have a link to that in the description, as well as at the end of the video there'll be an end card that you can click on to go straight to his. I apologize in advance. This is the first time that I'm trying to use some of this software. I've never done a Google Hangout, let alone record a Google Hangout, so there were some technical issues. The screen is not the size that I would like, and the audio I had some trouble with, so this is the first time, and hopefully it will be better the next time I try it, but I think you'll still be able to enjoy it.
So, to get started, why don't you tell my audience a little bit about who you are and how you got to this point?
Sure, but first and foremost, it's absolute honor and pleasure to be talking to you and to meet you. This is actually our first conversation that we're ever having. We've exchanged some emails and watched each other's videos, but for the most part, this is the first time, and I've always said that initial conversations are the most interesting. So, thank
That will
you.
be true.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool to actually see you in person.
awesome.
Sort of in person, as it were.
All right. So again, thank you. But to answer your question, and also namaste to everybody, right?
Yeah.
But to answer your question, in terms of how I came across Hinduism, I mean it was a number of different things. I mean, I would say, uh, being into mysticism and philosophy, I was definitely interested in the nature of reality. What is going on? What is this? And so I've studied, from an academic standpoint, psychology and philosophy and that sort of thing, answering the deep questions. I know that you've said in one of your videos, we've been like this since we were little kids, like completely interested in the nature of reality when everybody else is interested in the world, where we're having this inner experience trying to understand it better. And so it definitely started from childhood, and I was always a religious kid, growing up, or at least religious oriented. And then eventually with Hinduism, it was a number of things. Number one, it was the way that Hinduism described divinity and self-realization and the Atma and Brahman and all this kind of rhetoric. It resonated with my own personal experience, not an intellectual conceptualization of reality, but as a subjective experience. It was very much what I felt that I was experiencing. And so the subjective experience of oneness of all things, the subjective experience of being one with God, those two definitely played the most significant, it was the most significant factor in terms of what interested me in Sanatana Dharma.
Because you had tried other religions too. You found some amount of truth in those, I'm sure.
Well, oh yeah. So I was born and raised in the Muslim world, in the Muslim community. I switched between two denominations in Islam. I was born and raised in the Ahmadiyya sect of Islam, and then switched to mainstream Sunni Islam when I was about 17 years of age. Going back to that childhood thing, I was 17 when I converted from one denomination to the other.
So you'd already done lots of research and tried to learn,
Yeah.
really grow yourself spiritually even at that age.
Yeah, it was natural. It was the way that I was wired, and several of us in the world are wired this way, where we become very interested in whatever we become interested in, right? And so religion and spirituality, psychology, science, philosophy, the nature of reality was definitely something that was always been there since my early childhood, and continues to this day. It's these overwhelming perceptions of reality coming from two streams, the rational stream and the mystical stream, and that was definitely the main thing. For me, universalism was the other thing. So I didn't really experiment with. I mean, okay, I debated Christianity. I studied it vigorously. um, the exclusivity thing was the deal breaker for me. And matter of fact, the reason why
Sounds
I
familiar.
yeah, you and I agree on that completely. And the reason why I had left mainstream Islam is because the Sunni theology was teaching me that my parents and my family are going to go to hell. That they
Oh
are,
wow,
yeah,
just
yeah.
for a different branch of Islam.
Oh yeah, because these people believe that in someone who came after Prophet Muhammad and claimed to be a prophet in the second coming of Jesus. And so that was extremely heretical to mainstream Islam. And so from their perspective, this is kufr, this is not Islam. And
Sure.
the heresy has them believe that this theology is kufr. And so from what I understood is that anybody who is a non-believer is deserving of hellfire simply because of their theology. If they come across Islam and they understand its message and they decide that that's not true, then their destiny is fire torture for you forever and ever. And so that is
I'm
what
in
got me
trouble.
out. Right? I think most of humanity's in trouble, right? Or at least those who have some type of understanding that Islam is an option for you to consider.
Yeah.
So if I left Islam based on exclusivity, why would I go for another exclusivity claim within Christendom? And um,
See, I've
the
never understood how one exclusivity claim is higher
yeah,
than another.
right,
They're all saying that they're the only one. How do you
right,
pick which one is the only one?
right. And so Hinduism solved all of that, right? It played into an understanding of the fact that we all have our own temperament, that we all have our own perceptions of the divine, that we have to experience the divine ourselves in order to in order to find liberation. And Hinduism just fit perfectly within that area as well. So universalism and divinity were the primary two reasons. Also, being a student of psychology, I'm a big fan of Carl Jung and how he understands symbology and its actual manifestation in the world. And that's how that helped me become more acquainted with symbology in all religions, but especially Hinduism as well, and in terms of understanding the devas and whatnot. And so, I mean, I could go on and on. Literally everything in my life was pointing towards Hinduism. Okay, so I went from mental health or behavioral health as a career path to preventative health, so yoga, meditation,
So what age
wellness,
were you when you
nutrition.
were exploring Hinduism for the first time? Was this like college age?
No, this is definitely after. So this is around 26, 27 when I had first come across Hinduism and actually started looking into it. And this was also at the time, where I had began to doubt Islam as well. So, so that's pretty much how my interest grew in Hinduism.
Yeah. Let's see, what other questions did I write down? Oh yeah, how did you get started in doing religious debates? Because I saw that you
Right.
have a lot of experience in that.
Yeah, so I mean, again, being a student of philosophy, I realize that a lot of the conversations that are happening in the world it comes down to a battle of ideas. And there are some ideas that are bad ideas and other ideas that are good ideas. And in order to decipher what those good ideas are and comparing them to those bad ideas, I was interested in debating for a couple of reasons. Number one, to challenge my own beliefs, right? I wanted to challenge my own beliefs because I've never been the type of person who says, "Okay, I've got the truth,"
Sure,
or
yeah, you want
right,
to be sure of
right,
it and
right,
practice finding
right.
out if there is something else out there. You don't want to just sit back and be like, all right, I'm done now.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I thoroughly believe that Hinduism describes reality because of both experience, subjectively, as well as objective ways to measure reality. And so I do believe that I've come to appreciate truth, but truth is so abstract, truth is so dynamic, it's so vast that to say that one has understood or humanity collectively has understood everything, I think is naive. And from the perspective of Hinduism, consciousness is expanding, knowledge is evolving as humanity evolves. We're coming to know and appreciate more about reality. And we're finding as we do more science, particularly in the area of quantum mechanics and neuroscience, and trying to understand consciousness and the nature of reality, that all of the science is is pretty much parallel to what Hinduism has been describing for centuries,
Yeah,
especially compared to other religions.
definitely. My dad is a molecular biologist and
Hmm.
also studies Advaita, and
Hmm.
like he's never seen any contradiction between
Right,
Hinduism and science.
right.
I love that.
Evolution, Christians and Muslims can't get their minds around that. They're stuck
Yeah.
with the Adam and Eve literalism, and it's to their failure, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and of course I've certainly met Muslims and Christians who are not attached to these really
Hmm.
literal interpretations,
Exactly.
and
Yes.
it's easier to find something in common with them.
Right, of course. And these are the types of Muslims and Christians that I would love to reach out to and and show the world that, look, there's a lot of Christians and Muslims out there who in my words get it. They understand, right? And hopefully we get to see more and more of those types of Muslims and Christians in the world.
Yeah. And atheists too, to be honest.
Of
I
course.
think
Of course.
atheists get such a bad rap. People are
Mhm.
religious people are kind of scared of them. Like, I don't know
Mhm.
what they're gonna do because they don't
I don't
believe
think
in God.
Hindus are.
So
I know from my experience, Hindus are not weary of atheists. I mean, I'm a big fan of Sam Harris, and not a huge fan of Richard Dawkins. Christopher Hitchens was entertaining,
yeah,
but
intense,
right, right. So no,
caustic.
yeah, atheists are cool in my book. They're having a spiritual journey,
And there's lots of
yeah.
Hindus who are also atheists.
Oh, true, very
Those things
true.
kind of work together
Right,
in ways that
absolutely,
it can't in other places.
exactly.
So when did you start your YouTube channel, and what made you want to do that?
So I mean, I signed up way back when. I think YouTube just had come up, so I signed up then. But I didn't really do videos that much. I would post like probably two, three, four videos a year. All right. So it was just to have something up and I wanted to listen to myself, to see my own growth as a person, to understand the workings of my own mind. And so I recorded a few videos to kind of reflect on how I used to think and how I've grown as a person. And now it's just to share. It's to share everything that's been on my mind. It's to share, um, the beauty of Hinduism, but it's also to I'll be honest with you. Um, I have an agenda against exclusivity. I'm very clear about
Yeah,
that,
me too.
and that's probably on top of my list in terms of why I have a YouTube page, is to fight this exclusivity doctrine, because I've watched debates between atheists, Christians, and Muslims for the longest time, and it's the same thing over and over and over again for the past like 20 years, and it's about time that universalism gets its time into the conversation.
Yeah.
I've studied these exclusivists a lot. I mean, every single one of them, from Ravi Zacharias to Yasser Qadi. He's an exclusivist, and I've looked at their arguments, and they're logically and philosophically irrational, to say the best. And I would like to demonstrate that as I continue the YouTube page.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I bet you're popular because Hindus are always fascinated when they see a convert, especially from Islam, because they're so
Mhm.
used to seeing it go the other way. It's like,
Oh yeah.
oh wow, look, we got one.
Right, but what's interesting is that nobody tried. This was all searching and praying and meditating and doing yoga,
That's another
and
great thing about Hinduism is
yeah,
the lack of pressure to
right.
convert. Like
No
you can discover it,
proselytization. Yeah,
and no one's gonna push you towards it because it's like, ah, you'll find it next lifetime. It'll be fine.
exactly, exactly. And so, and I mean, if Hindus rejoice, then that's beautiful. I've met, I've talked to a lot of Hindus. I've talked to a lot of Muslims, and Christians over the past couple of weeks since I decided to become more active on YouTube and come out with my testimony on my journey from Islam to Hinduism. And I've gotten a ton of great feedback. Um, there might be some conservative voices who are concerned about my, you know, certain ways that I might approach Hinduism, and that's fine. The conservatives can have their way of seeing the religion, and I wouldn't call myself liberal, um, completely liberal. There are things that I'm liberal about. There are things that I'm conservative about. The topic of postmodernity comes up a lot because I've been an advocate of it, and Hindus are weary of postmodernity, atheists are weary of postmodernity, Christians and Muslims
What
are
does
weary.
that mean exactly? Can you define
So,
that in a quick?
sure. And I understand, and this is why I'm not completely an advocate of postmodernity, although I see values in it. And where I see values in postmodernity, I embrace it, and where I'm skeptical of postmodernity, I'm skeptical, and I call out that this makes no sense. So postmodernity, it dissolves all identities, including Hindu,
Oh, okay.
Christian, Muslim, right? So these identities dissolve, and so it's not about being Hindu or Buddhist or anything, right? But and nationalism begins to disappear, and many Hindus are very nationalistic,
It's scary because there's that
right?
fear that
The identity will be lost.
we as our tribe are
Yes,
gonna be
yes,
destroyed and go away. I
right,
think people tend to see who is us and who is our tribe as way too narrow.
right. But there's a way to embrace.
Scary.
There should be an embrace of who you are and who you are created or manifested as. You know, race and religion and gender. So even in postmodernity, gender dissolves, right? Male and female dissolve, and we see that in this country, folks. We see postmodernity,
Yeah,
postmodern
it's getting there.
culture is thoroughly alive in this country and in the West in general. Um, and so what's happening in the world is that a lot of the baby boomers, say American traditionalism, who voted for Donald Trump, or the Brexit, and the election of Narendra Modi in India, these are the baby boomers who are worried about the postmodern millennials who want to dissolve identity and tribalism and nationalism. And there's a little bit of a battle between traditionalists and postmodern thinkers. And there's postmodern Christians, there's postmodern Hindus. So Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, who I am a huge fan of, would be one of these postmodern gurus, if you will. And many of the conservatives don't even consider him a guru. And so, but this is something that I mean, honestly, I don't find any dangers in terms of postmodernity because Hinduism advocates what's called neti neti, which is a deconstruction of the identity. Right? It's not this, not this. I'm not the body. I'm not the identity. I'm not the I'm not the mind, and so on and so forth. But where postmodernity has its dangers in the sense that divinity has manifested us in tribes and groups for a reason. There's wisdom behind the diversity. And the dangers behind postmodernity is that if you get rid of all of these identities, then it moves us in a direction where we're all trying to be the same, and that's not what we want.
Yeah, we don't need that.
No. And so in the book Rajiv Malhotra wrote, Challenging Western Universalism and Postmodernity, in this excellent book. Rajiv Malhotra is a Hindu scholar who I have a ton of respect for.
I actually went to see him speak
Okay.
at my local temple. It was
Yeah.
a really neat experience.
Okay. No, but I mean, I haven't seen him in person. I've seen a lot of his work. I enjoy his work. And he is a huge advocate against postmodernism. Huge advocate against it. And I have a ton of respect for him and in all of his arguments that he makes against postmodernity because I agree with it in the sense that we don't all want to be the same. The true idea behind universalism is a celebration of diversity. That the Muslim can be Muslim, the Christian can be Christian, a white person can be white, an Indian person can be Indian, an African American person can be African American. We all have different cultures, and we appreciate these different cultures and enjoy these different cultures. And so with postmodernism, if you dissolve the identity and we all become the same, then that's not an ideal world either. Universalism is about the celebration of diversity, not dissolving it. And so there's many other limitations with postmodernism. For example, relative truth, which is illogical. There's no such thing as relative truth. Truth
I
is
struggle with that.
absolute.
I'm such a relativist.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
about, obviously truth is
absolute. It has to be.
But I'm always like, am I sure that this is true? I don't know. There's this case. So I end up with this.
Right.
People always accuse me of being a relativist. in my
So
morals.
so here's the interesting thing. We are relativists, but not when it comes to truth, when it comes to perception. And so I've always said,
Perception,
you know,
yes.
this is an empirical fact that perception is relative. So the Veda says that we see the truth differently, right? That the truth is one, but we see the truth differently. And so that's relative perception, which is an empirical fact. It's true, objectively, right? And so that is something we can say for sure. And in philosophy, we have ways to arrive at objective truth, and there are ways to understand subjective truth. And that's why I'm huge into philosophy, is because we understand truth, and when we understand truth, we realize that there are universal truths, right? There are universal truths between religions, between cultures, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the universe is telling us the truth all the time,
Right.
and different people tap into it in different ways. It's not like the truth belongs to one particular group or
Right.
one particular religion.
Right. Exactly. And so yeah, that's kind of a, you know, that's kind of a nutshell on some of the things that have come up on my journey within Hinduism, and I'm completely fine with it. Like, I embrace conservatism, I embrace progressive attitudes, I embrace um, traditional values and securing the identity and honoring it. You know, I claim to be Hindu. So, for example, Sadhguru does not claim to be Hindu, right? Sadhguru just, he
Yeah.
wants to go beyond it, which is from a Hindu perspective. Spiritually, we can transcend the identity, but practically, for all practical purposes, there's a need for identifying who we
Yeah,
are and what
it
we
can be very
believe.
helpful.
Right.
And I have that sometimes. People tell me, "Oh, you don't have to claim, you don't have to say you're Hindu, just be Hindu."
Right.
And I'm like,
Right.
that's lovely, but
But
sometimes the label is really useful.
it's both useful, and there's another point that you made in one of your videos, is that, and this is something that happened with me, when everything that I was doing, meditation, yoga, you know, even Shiva and all of it, like, I was, for all practical purposes, I was Hindu, and for the past 6 years, and I've even claimed to be Hindu in many circles. I go to Buddhist circles, I go to New Age circles, and I've always claimed to be Hindu, because everything that I believe, all the practices that I do, are Hindu, and to not honor where I'm getting this from would be unfortunate, right?
Yes.
And that's a big argument that Rajiv Malhotra makes, and traditional Hindus make, is that there have been centuries of people who have worked so hard on developing this knowledge that
Yes.
to not acknowledge it would be plagiarism. It would be disrespectful, and that's a big thing. A lot of the New Age community, that it's considered plagiarism because you're not acknowledging the source, right?
And you
And
saw that I talk about that a lot because
yeah,
of how I grew up with
right.
this cult-like organization that
Hmm.
definitely taught me all Hindu philosophy and never called it that.
Right.
So now when people tell me, well, I'm doing better than I was then. So it's a step.
Right. So yeah, no, I mean, I am definitely proud to be Hindu. I love Hinduism, and you know, there are going to be Hindus that agree with us, and there's going to be Hindus that disagree with us, and that's fine. You know, that's what
Diversity is
diversity is all
wonderful.
about, right? So, yep.
Yeah. So do you think that a guru is necessary when practicing Hinduism?
I mean, is a teacher necessary to learn biology? Is a teacher necessary to learn physics? Is a teacher necessary to learn anything? The piano,
Good
the flute,
analogy.
right? So yeah, we definitely have to have teachers. Christians have priests and pastors and theologians. Muslims do, and Hinduism does too. And they've spent their entire life disciplining themselves and learning all the philosophies and the techniques and the methods and the theology. Yes, it would be to have a teacher is very important. I think that just like Christians should be wary of what church they're going to, Muslims should be wary of what the scholar is teaching at the pulpit, that Hindus can be wary of gurus as well. There are
Yeah,
charlatans,
keep your mind open.
right? There's that, and you've mentioned this before. There's charlatans, right? There are definitely charlatans. I personally don't judge the charlatans, and here's why: because if the congregation benefits spiritually from a charlatan, It doesn't matter about the charlatan. They have their own karma, and you have your own karma.
That's very true.
But obviously, we don't want to be passive towards deception, and so calling out deception is something that's important.
Yeah, we don't
Um,
want people to be hurt. Like
right,
spiritual abuse is something that
right.
can happen, and
And
we
you
have to protect
mentioned
people.
and you mentioned the word cult. My background is in psychology. I've studied I did social psychology. I teach Psychology 101, and the entire chapter dedicated to this. And so there was definitely cults, not just in Hinduism, in Christianity, in Islam, and the mosques and the communities worked and work and function with the charismatic leader, the way that is described in science. And so, does Hinduism have that? Does Christianity have it? Does Islam have it? And even outside of religion, are there cults? Absolutely. And there's ways to be wary of it. There's signs that you can look for. Um, but for the most part, what I have found is that most of the gurus, just like most of the many leaders of many other religions, are beautiful people, well learned at people. They want to inspire people. They want to help people grow spiritually, and so yeah, I do think that a guru is important.
But I think also in that analogy of a biology teacher, it kind of leaves open that
Mm.
some really exceptional individuals are self-starters and really can
Yes,
manage without, and that's rare and amazing.
right.
But it
And we
does
believe
take into account those edge cases.
Yeah, we believe that karma and past lives and stuff like that, right? And so, I mean, I've always, and this is funny, even before I became Hindu, I always noticed how skinny I am. I was like, I must have been an intense yogi in a past life, right? Yeah, no, I do think that there are some people who can be self-starters, are self-starters. I believe as consciousness is expanding, in terms of globalization and the collective consciousness is expanding, that those possibilities are becoming more and more because we have so much knowledge accessible to us. Whereas prior, would have to go and learn techniques by going to a temple, but now there's like endless footage of gurus and masters on YouTube. And granted, you need individual instruction, but the knowledge is there, and people can definitely benefit from that knowledge. You know,
Yeah, and I think the intention in your
right?
heart goes a long way.
Absolutely.
The gods understand if you make a mistake, they know that
Right.
you're doing your best.
Right. I think the most important thing when it comes to dharma is practice, more than theology, more than any of these debates that we will have. Is your individual practice, how it conditions the biology and the psychology, and develops you as an individual. And so, there's people who do all the rituals because it's a cultural thing and there's no spirituality, and that's dangerous. People who might think that they're just spiritual and don't need religion, that's dangerous. And the reason why spirituality without some type of practice, I'm using practice and religion synonymously, saying that I'm spiritual, I appreciate the qualitative aspects of life, I find meaning in life, that's spiritual, right? But without without some type of contemplative practice, without some type of foundation and framework, um, are you doing the things necessary consistently to impact your biology and psychology? Are you meditating? Are you doing yoga? Are you doing some type of practice that keeps you developing as a person?
Yeah, good to have some guardrails.
Yeah.
And also not to like stagnate, to keep on growing.
Right.
If there's a lot of growth to be had.
Right.
Maybe I should save the rest of these questions for another time.
Sure. You want to go
Talking
ahead
for
and
ages, which is awesome. So,
okay.
are you ready to switch?
Yep. Let's go ahead and switch.